Hello, welcome to Cerulean Arts Gallery. Today we're speaking with Elaina Posey in conjunction with her Cerulean Arts Collective Exhibition, which is on view now through October 13th. Hello, Elaina.
Hi, how are you?
Great, thanks for being here.
Sure. Hi, I'm Elaina Posey. Just a little background about myself. I received my master's at Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts in 2013. Um, I've been instructing at Pennsylvania College of Art and Design in Lancaster for a few years now, teaching color theory and basic color classes. Um, and traditionally, or in the past, I've been more of an abstract painter. This show is kind of a bridge between um, going more representational, but still keeping the elements of some of my past abstract works. Um, and this particular show is kind of an extension of my past show at Cerulean, kind of focusing on plants, specifically in this show, snake plants and cacti. There was a couple paintings from my last show that I did snake plants, and they kind of gave, to me, they almost seemed like portraits. They kind of had like a figurative sort of vibe for them. So I was really intrigued by that and kind of wanted to keep exploring that. Um, and so I kind of was trying to figure out a way, how do I keep my abstract vibe, but bring it into a more representational sort of a painting. So I had a couple like color block series and crystal series where I was really just focused on the colors next to each other, patterns, kind of having a conversation with the actual piece and the process, and came to realize that um, the abstraction of the color blocks and the crystals actually made for really cool like pots for plants. And I was like, this is kind of a really cool way to still keep my abstract or my tendency to do abstract with the pottery or the pots for the plants, but then kind of bring it into a more representational space. Um, so these are kind of the extension of just viewing the plants kind of like a portrait. I don't know, they sort of just gave this, they were like solitary, kind of telling a story, sort of. And then the one that one, and then I was like, okay, well, let's try some more traditional still life, add the background, kind of just sort of focus on more of compositional sort of things. I think too, when I'm working on about 4 or 5 of these at a time. So they all kind of speak to each other. If there's something I like in one particular piece, I'm like, oh, let me try that in the other piece. And so there's a lot of elements that are the same. This red snake plant one is one of the most recent ones that I have done. And I'm really interested in this. I added sort of like a quilt-like paper collage first. I kind of liked the idea of having these plants sort of sitting on quilts for whatever reason. That's like something I was kind of thinking about starting to do. So this is my first kind of go around with that idea, but I really enjoyed that. And I think I'm going to try and bring more of the collage sort of aspect into the work.
So
So
is it,
yeah, that's kind
um,
of where my head is right now.
it's actually collaged pattern paper on this one?
Yes. And then I painted over some of the paper. Some of the paper is just collage as is. Then I painted over some of it. The blue, like the blue diagonals I painted. So yeah, it's kind of a combination. And the whole process to me too, like painting has always sort of been sort of like a way to stay present. Um, and it's a lot about just the act of doing it. So a lot of the times it's just a meditative process for me. Like the cutting of the paper and like gluing it down and all that was just very sort of like calming and peaceful. So I really enjoyed that whole process. And kind of the same when I'm doing the patterns in the pots and things like that. Um, I feel like the parts of each are kind of talking to each other, having sort of a little conversation. So
So Lena, when you approach a painting, are you make studies or do you just directly paint, or are you working from observation? How do you go about it?
Um, I do have a couple little succulents and stuff that I'm kind of working intuitively. Like I'll look at the plants, but then I'm kind of like, okay, I have a mental picture of what it looks like, and then I'm kind of just painting. Like this one in particular, I almost sort of view this as like a study. Like a lot of these, I don't, I rarely ever go back into paintings. I mean, I won't finish them in one session, but like once I've made the marks, I don't typically say, oh, I hate that, or let's redo that, unless it's absolutely terrible. But for the most part, I'm just kind of intuitively painting. And then if something works, then I'm like, okay, time to do another painting with those elements that worked. And if it didn't work, I kind of throw it away and say, okay, well, next time, maybe not that. But like this one was one of the more recent ones that I've done, which I feel like kind of was more less a study and more an actual, finished piece. Um, just kind of taking, like I said, elements, colors that I've used in the past, patterns I've used in the past, things that works, things that I didn't work, kind of making it more of a whole. Um, like this one feels very more still life to me than figure, but
An interesting combination between the naturalistic leaves and then the faceted, more abstract pot.
yeah, I think that's kind of the point. I feel like for a very long time, I was very abstract. I was just interested in, color relationships, forms, very 2D space. And lately I've been kind of wanting to get back into more representational. I've really wanted to take some more figure classes, kind of get myself back into that space. But I feel like I love bold, bright colors. I love just kind of, painting. So I'm like kind of battling myself. I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, where do I go? And I feel like this was a good opportunity to kind of experiment with both and have it still make sense. So yeah, like I think this one was also one of the last ones. I kind of wanted to, because I like just having a one color background and kind of seeing where it goes. And I was like, oh, let me just try like a floating plant or something that, makes sense to be floating. And this one I feel like is more of the on the representational end of things.
So you're
Um,
using you really see your brush strokes and the texture of the.
mhm. Yeah, I use like the palette, like a lot of times because I do mix colors, but a lot of times I use straight out of the bottle. So like this, the tube, this was straight out of the tube. So if that's the case, I just use the palette knife and try to get it on as like bright and opaque as possible. And um,
And you're using acrylic, yes?
yes, this is acrylic.
And do you prefer it then to oil, or as you have you always worked in acrylic? And do you use any like extenders or gels in
Um,
it to.
I do have like a couple like gel mediums and stuff that I have used on occasion. I was using oils for a very long time, and then being a mother of small children and having to work at home, I had to step away from that just logistically. I wouldn't have worked here. And now I've kind of I love acrylics. I love the fact that they dry very quickly. I think the way that I paint it, instinctively just putting down the marks and stuff, acrylics works. Um, I would like to start, using oils. I don't know if I really have a preference. I think they're kind of different. It would be interesting to go back to oils now and see how that would go with like the kind of paintings that I'm doing.
And your color is very distinctive. I mean, where does it come from? How did you, like, you know, just come
Yeah,
to bright, vibrant colors? I mean, a lot of people are scared of using colors like this.
I know. And I've gotten that question a lot, and I don't really have a straight answer. I just like I said, like back in when I was at PAFA, I was really interested in like Rothko and like, the just how two colors look together and how they can vibrate off of each other. Um,
Mhm.
so I would experiment a lot with that. and my tendency was always to go just very vibrant. And I have actually been experimenting more lately with, how do you get more of like a darker, duller color to vibrate off of a lighter color. So I would like to experiment more with that. I really honestly don't know why I always err on the vibrant side. It's just always something I've gone to.
Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned Rothko, are there other artists that you think about?
Like I studied, which I don't think really portrays very well in my work, but I studied Albers for a long time, like his squares and how I just kind of like the idea of how you can make a spatial relationship between colors or how they can feel against each other. Um, so yeah, I kind of, and obviously like all the abstract, like I've always liked like Cy Twombly, de Kooning, all like the emotional or the expressionist, like I feel like they use color very well in portraying spatial relationships. So I don't know. Um, it's just always been an interest to explore how color can create emotion in space for me. So yeah, like this was kind of, I did like sort of a color block series a while back, and this was kind of going back to that, using that as like the base. And kind of a lot of times my pieces are floating in space, so I have tried to like, okay, maybe I should try to make some sort of a background and a foreground and see what that looks like and how it changes the space. Um, but yeah, I sort of like when I look at this, I can kind of feel like, oh, okay, I really like this about this piece. Let's take it into the next piece. So it's very conversational. Like I lay all the pieces out, and like I said, I paint them pretty much together. These first two, the two snake plants, the blue and orange, were probably the first ones that I did. I feel like they were speaking more directly to the two snake plants that I had in the last exhibition. Um, so that was kind of my starting point. Like I said, I really liked the starkness of like the portrait of the plant. Um, but then that's when I kind of was like, oh, well, let me play around with what the pots look like and how I can sort of bring in other abstract elements into the pieces. So it kind of went from there. So I feel like that the red snake plant, the quilted one, um, is kind of going to be my jumping off point for some new pieces that I'm going to start working on. Yeah, I mean, I think that yellow one right there, that I don't know, it feels like a dancer or something to me, like someone's just moving around. Has
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, they definitely have personality, all your
yeah.
painting. Well, thanks so much, Elaine. It's a great show.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
It's always wonderful to see your work.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity.
So the show is up through October 13th. We hope people can make it down. And everything's also available on our website, ceruleanarts.com. So thanks again and have a good day.